Your paycheck hasn't changed, but your money buys less every month. That sounds impossible, right? If the number on your salary slip is the same, how could you be getting poorer? Yet this is happening to millions of people quietly, legally, and almost invisibly. No one sends you a notice. No boss calls you into an office. Still, year after year, your real income shrinks. This video will challenge what you think you know about pay, prices, and fairness, and by the end, you may never look at your salary the same way again. Welcome to Meta Finance Lab, where you can get more informative videos related to finance. You can subscribe to the channel for timely updates. Let's start with a simple moment you've probably experienced. You go to the grocery store and buy the same items you've bought for years. Milk, eggs, bread, maybe some chicken and vegetables. At the checkout, the total flashes on the screen, and you pause for a second. You don't remember it being this high. You assume it's a one-time thing. But the next week, and the week after that, it keeps happening. Now imagine this happening not just with groceries, but with rent, gas, electricity, medical bills, streaming subscriptions, school supplies, and insurance. Each price rises slowly, quietly. Your salary, meanwhile, stays exactly the same. You still earn the same number of dollars, but those dollars are weaker. This is inflation, and it doesn't knock on your door. It sneaks in, month by month, trimming your purchasing power while pretending everything is normal. The ability to print currency made it easier to fund wars, build infrastructure, and stimulate economies. It also planted the seeds of silent income loss. Fast forward to the 20th century. After major wars and economic crises, governments learned to actively manage inflation. A little inflation, they said, was good. It encouraged spending, investment, and economic growth. Central banks began targeting specific inflation rates, often around 2% per year. That number sounds harmless, almost boring. 2% doesn't feel like a threat. But here's the twist most people never calculate. 2% every year compounds, just like interest, except it works against you. Think about this. If inflation averages just 3% a year, prices double roughly every 24 years. That means something that cost $10 when you started working could cost $20 before you retire. If your salary doesn't double in that same period, you're effectively earning less, even if your paychecks look bigger on paper. This is where the illusion begins. Raises that don't beat inflation are not raises at all. They are pay cuts in disguise. Wages started lagging behind productivity. People worked more, produced more, but didn't see proportional increases in pay. Inflation, meanwhile, kept marching forward. Slowly, the gap widened between what people earn and what life actually cost. Here's where it gets personal. Imagine you earned $50,000 10 years ago and still earn $50,000 today. That means today, your $50,000 buys what roughly $40,000 bought back then. No announcement, no scandal, just erosion. And many people never realize this is happening until they feel constantly stressed despite stable income. Governments often say inflation is under control, but that statement hides a deeper issue. The inflation rate is an average. It doesn't reflect your personal life. If housing, healthcare, and education rise faster than the official number, and they often do, your real inflation rate is higher. For families with kids, renters in cities, or people with medical needs, inflation hits harder. The system assumes a one-size-fits-all basket of goods, but real lives don't work that way. Now let's talk about the breaking point. In recent years, inflation spiked dramatically. Suddenly, what used to be a slow leak became a visible flood. People noticed because the changes were no longer subtle. Central banks responded the way they always do, by raising interest rates. The idea was to slow spending, cool inflation, and restore balance, but this fix came with side effects. Higher interest rates increased mortgage payments, credit card debt, and business costs. Workers were squeezed from both sides. Prices stayed high, borrowing became expensive, and wage growth struggled to keep up. The cure created new pain. What makes this situation even more frustrating is that inflation doesn't affect everyone equally. Asset owners often benefit. If you own real estate or stocks, inflation can inflate asset values. Debt becomes easier to repay with cheaper dollars. Meanwhile, people who rely mainly on wages suffer the most. You might wonder why salaries don't automatically adjust. In theory, labor markets should push wages up when prices rise. Inflation moves continuously, but wage negotiations happen occasionally. That timing mismatch alone ensures workers usually lose ground. By the time a raise arrives, prices have already moved ahead. There's also a psychological trick at play. Humans focus on nominal numbers, not real value. A paycheck going from $60,000 to $62,000 feels like progress. But if inflation was 5%, you actually lost money. Because the number went up, the pain feels less obvious. This is why inflation is called a silent tax. It takes without a bill, without paperwork, and without a clear villain. And because it's confusing, many people blame themselves instead of the system. History shows this pattern repeating again and again. In the 1970s, high inflation devastated middle-class incomes. Wages chased prices but never fully caught up. Savings lost value. So what about the proposed fixes? Governments suggest education, budgeting, and investing. You can budget perfectly and still fall behind if income doesn't grow faster than costs. You can save diligently, but inflation eats cash savings alive. Investing can help, but it involves risk and requires surplus money, something many people no longer have. The system quietly shifts responsibility onto individuals for a structural issue. If your salary increases less than inflation, your standard of living declines. Maybe you skip vacations, delay home ownership, eat out less, or postpone having kids. These aren't just personal choices, they're economic signals. When millions make the same choices, society changes. Birth rates fall, stress rises, trust erodes. It rewards speculation over patience. Over time, this reshapes behavior across an entire economy. When money feels unstable, planning feels risky. That psychological impact may be inflation's most dangerous effect, and it's rarely discussed. You might be asking, is there any way to protect yourself? The honest answer is partially, but not perfectly. Understanding inflation is the first defense. Knowing your real income, not just your nominal salary, helps you make better decisions. Negotiating raises with inflation data, not just performance metrics, can shift conversations. Diversifying income sources can reduce reliance on a single paycheck. None of these are magic solutions, but awareness alone puts you ahead of most people. A 1% higher raise negotiated early in your career can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Waiting for a crisis makes options limited. That's why this topic matters even when prices seem normal. Quiet periods are when the real erosion happens. There's also a broader question we rarely ask. Should salaries automatically adjust for inflation? Some countries and contracts include cost of living adjustments, but many don't. Businesses argue flexibility is needed. Workers argue fairness. As long as inflation exists and wages lag behind it, this conflict will continue. And most people will feel the pressure long before they understand the cause. Let's pause and zoom out. Inflation didn't start as a villain. It was a tool meant to stabilize economies and prevent deflation. Over time, it became normalized. People accepted that prices always go up. But acceptance doesn't mean harmless. A slow leak can sink a ship just as surely as a sudden hole. Inflation's danger lies in its patience. It waits until complacency sets in, then compounds quietly in the background. Now for the 3 takeaways you should remember. First, your salary number alone means nothing without context. Always compare income growth to inflation. Second, inflation is not evenly distributed. Third, ignoring inflation doesn't make it go away. It only guarantees you feel its effects later, when adjustments are harder and stress is higher. The warning is simple but uncomfortable. If current systems remain unchanged, many workers will continue falling behind even while earning more. The gap between effort and reward will widen. This isn't about panic, it's about clarity. Inflation is not a mystery force. It's a predictable process with predictable outcomes. The question is whether you recognize it early enough to respond, or only after it has quietly reshaped your life. Not did my salary go up, but did my purchasing power improve? That shift in thinking alone can change how you negotiate, save, invest, and plan. Awareness doesn't stop inflation, but it stops the illusion. And once the illusion breaks, you start making decisions based on reality instead of numbers on a paycheck. Meta Finance Lab brings you useful knowledge and insights to help you understand the world of finance. Subscribe to stay informed and share with others who need this information.